I can't believe it, but it finally happened. The Panthers moved on from Frank Reich as the play caller, and finally we're getting to see Thomas Brown possibly take the reins. Let's talk about it.
Hey, I thought it was all over.
Welcome to Real Coverage. I am your host, Nick, where we talk about sports for sports' sake. Today we're talking about my Panthers. This has been my long-anticipated video. Kind of took a weekend off to marinate on this a little bit, kind of see where my head is at, and decide how I really wanted to approach this. First things first, I want to say that everyone out there that said that my idea to give TB play calling was crazy. I do think that Frank has a little bit much on his plate, but I think I'll get into that. I have my little tinfoil hat theory for that. But overall, I'm very happy with this move. Thomas Brown is the third black offensive coordinator. So I think he's going to want to do stuff. He's going to want to change the culture. But we also have to remember, this game is very much a personnel game. We're seeing that with games like the 49ers. 49ers are able to come in there, but once they get some key injuries at positions like running back, left tackle, wide receiver, we're seeing them be able to lose these games. We're seeing teams show up into games and then just not take opponents seriously, which is what I think the Dolphins started with. They didn't really take the Panthers seriously coming into this 0-5, now 0-6 after the loss. And they just, were kind of playing around with their food. And then once they were ready to go and they, got their wits about them, they were able to actually put a ton of points on the board and obviously put us in the rearview mirror. Now, I don't know. I'm at the point now where, sorry, I'm trying to adjust the mic. I don't really know what the future holds for us. Again, the thing that I've said from the beginning, and anybody that fights me on it, I just don't think that you really understand the situation or really the timeline, which if somebody's done a full timeline video, please link it down for me, of the Panthers. So since 2021, we've had Scott Fitterer. He's made some really bad moves, chosen to not pay Brian Burns, chosen to let people go, and just overall not really put us in a position to succeed, I would say. Moving forwards, I would obviously say Scott Fitterer, again, has to go. I would have fired him immediately after the Dolphins loss. I probably would have fired him on the plane if I was Tepper, but apparently they're boys. So I'm worried about that, obviously. But to get to my tinfoil hat theory, I think that this was always planned in Frank's eyes. Now, you're going to have to, give me a little bit of leeway here to flesh this out. So please listen to the whole thing. Then give me your thoughts afterwards in the comments down below. So my thought process is Frank Reich obviously leaves a very bad situation with the Colts. We obviously saw a lot marinating with Jonathan Taylor. We saw how they were trying to do a patchwork quarterback, just trying to get Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz. Somebody just kind of show up that can do the job, and hopefully that defense and running game can carry you. So a lot of people are going to place blame on that. I think it's unfair. I think that they're two separate situations, 2 separate years, different personnel, everything like that. But when it comes to Frank possibly thinking ahead of this, I think of it almost like 4D chess. And I actually made a tweet about it. You can follow us on Roll Coverage Pod on Twitter/X, where I basically said that Frank probably came into this season thinking about the future. I would say in the event that they don't want to keep him. Now, I don't think any coach should go in with that mindset. I'm not necessarily saying that he was solely focused on not getting fired, but I think the idea that he had a McVay prodigy in Thomas Brown sitting as offensive coordinator, I think he needed to give over reins at some point. I do agree that head coaches should not call plays. That's why you have coordinators. That's why we pay them. That's why they work with the team. So, my thought process, again, I'm trying to get back on track. I'm kind of all over the place. I apologize. Is Frank Reich came into this and said, we're going to succeed with Bryce Young, regardless of if he was forced to take Bryce Young over CJ Stroud, which I'm not really going to address besides this little thing. But Frank comes into the year, sees Thomas Brown calling some preseason stuff, and is like, ooh, he's got something, but there's something missing. This personnel really can't execute his vision. So I'm going to do play calling to start to mitigate a lot of that hate. So this is my scenario for that. Frank comes into it, says, Thomas Brown, I really like you. I really would think that you're going to succeed. You're going to be a great offensive coordinator, and Bryce Young is going to be able to do that a lot. But I'm going to take the heat of our early losses, since this is a new system being implemented with a rookie quarterback, with a franchise that has long had problems, we'll say. So he went in there, took it on the chin, had some bad games. The offense is starting to pick up. And obviously we saw that surge of points in this last Dolphins game. So I think that Reich is on the right path for our offense, though I do think Thomas Brown will get a little bit of a bump. But the one thing that I want to steer away from is that after this, I absolutely foresee the Panthers faithful and unfaithful will begin to turn Thomas Brown into Coach Wilks. And that's where I think we are cutting our nose off to spite our face, I think is the term. Whatever you want to call it. I think it's too early. Thomas Brown is an unproven coordinator, unproven head coach. So the idea that firing Frank and installing this OC who's just now being able to run the offense, and then basically put him in a Frank scenario where he is a we'll say unproven head coach, and also has to call plays, which is the problem that people had with Frank. So I do not believe that Frank's chair is hot anymore, barring Bryce going out there and throwing 5 interceptions a game and looking like he took a massive step backwards. I don't think that that's going to be the option moving forwards. I do think that Frank will survive the entire year, as he should. I think that Fitterer needs to be gone, and the fact that he, again, continues to have a job every day is absolutely a failure by David Tepper. And just in case you guys don't know, we do have a petition, a change.org petition to try and get him to actually release Fitterer finally. One of those things that we actually put in there was that we wanted Frank Reich to give up play calling as well. So we were able to accomplish that as well. So hey, again, I'm not taking credit. I didn't do it. I'm just glad that I was pointing in the right direction of where we were actually going to go. So I'm happy about that. But overall, I think that was the 4D chess move that Frank was playing. I think that Frank came into this knowing that he would be giving up play calling at some point. Knowing that Thomas Brown, again, being a McVay prodigy, is going to want to call plays and might be able to scheme a little bit better, which is okay. I think that head coaches are the CEOs of the team, essentially, so they need to treat it as such and trust their coordinators. I'll always agree with that. There's no point in having an offensive coordinator if he doesn't call plays, defensive coordinator if they don't call plays or anything like that. So we're at the point now where the Panthers need to make a move by the deadline. Now, we're obviously going into a bye, which makes me very happy. Obviously, if you came to this video, by the way, thinking that I was going to give you analysis of the last game, this is just more of my, again, tinfoil hat theory about Reich's giving up play calling and how it's going to affect our team moving forwards. Now, a lot of people are saying, what's the one move? I've said, and I put out a poll, what's the one move you would make? And I think the one, to be honest, that we should make is with the Broncos, and it's not for Jerry Jeudy. I'll put up his injury history right now, along with some others, Hollywood Brown, and a few other guys that people have been saying we need to go get, and their injury history just doesn't give me a vote of confidence, we'll say. On top of that, say, for example, Jerry Jeudy is currently nursing, I believe it's a partial thigh tear, or a hamstring tear, I'm sorry. So I can't go with that. So what I would personally do is, we've already talked about getting rid of Chin, doing that whole thing. We trade Chin to Philly for whatever we can. If we can get back a 5th round pick, that's great. We take our current 2nd round pick or future 2nd round pick, plus that pick that we get from Philly, and trade it to the Broncos for Pat Surtain. The reason why I say that is because the one place that we're really suffering, and the place that we're talking about trading already, is Dante Jackson from our secondary, Chin from our secondary. We really need to shore that up if we want to be in games. There's actually a funny stat that somebody posted on Twitter where we had the number 1 scoring offense in our South Division. So I thought that was kind of crazy. So we're obviously being able to put points on the board with Frank Reich. So that, again, dispels this whole Frank doesn't know how to run the offense thing. I understand it's not translating into the win columns, but it's basically the opposite of what happened to the Vikings. What was it, last year? Where they were winning so many of these close games that they were just like boom, boom, boom. And then teams were losing games where they shouldn't have been losing them. And I do think that we lost 1 or 2 of them that we should have won. Absolutely. I do not think it was necessarily because of play calling. Again, I'll continue to pound the desk that it is personnel. if we were to take Nick Saban and give him, University of Texas San Antonio's roster and then expect him to win a national championship or compete in the playoffs, that's just a pipe dream. So I think that the Panthers faithful needs to kind of rein it in. Hopefully you guys have been seeing all the things that I've been posting up. Just a little blurbs that people have been saying that Bryce is a bust, because I want this to stick. I want you guys to keep calling him a bust. I want you guys to keep it going, because I do think Thomas Brown will improve. But I do think that the Panthers faithful will overcorrect. The Panthers faithful will see Thomas Brown rattle off a win or two over the next, say, 4 to 5 weeks. And they're going to say, see, this is why we need to fire Frank, blah, 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 blah. But that's not the full story again. Somebody talked about injuries. I believe it was Smooth Operator or something like that. And I literally posted up our week 1 through 6 injury report. In fact, I'll start cycling them right now. To think that Frank had a fully healthy roster, to think that his personnel was on par to be able to make a playoff run, to the fact that you thought that a rookie was, again, going to step in and immediately look like somebody, I think it's kind of crazy. We're jumping the gun. Not every player is a Joe Burrow that can immediately carry a bad franchise to a Super Bowl. So I think the expectations of, Bryce needs to immediately show up and give everybody everything, I think that's a bit far-fetched. But when it comes to, obviously, the antithesis to that argument, C.J. Stroud, who's doing really well. Yeah, C.J. Stroud has Tank Dell, has Nico Collins, has some decent pieces on the other side as well. I would compare the future, hopefully, of Will Anderson Jr. to Brian Burns, which, again, we should have paid that man. I don't care what you say. Brian Burns should have been paid by now, but I don't know. I don't see the future of this year being one of more than 5 wins at best. And to be honest, I think 5 wins is honestly an insurmountable climb for us. I think it's possible, but I mean, we would literally have to walk into some good easy wins. But yeah, so that's my thought process. I think that Frank was always planning on giving it to TB. I think that it essentially could create TB as a martyr person, not a martyr, again, as a Wilks'd type of somebody that if Frank does get fired or something like that, where they're like, oh, we need to go with him, we need to go with him, we need to go with him, we need to go with him. But the problem is again, you want Frank Reich, because he's the head coach, to give up responsibilities as calling plays. Basically, everybody agrees that head coaches shouldn't be calling plays. So then your solution is to fire now CEO, head coach, and put in an offensive coordinator who will be a head coach, aka CEO, and a play caller as well. So I don't think that those two are equal. Regardless, my name is Nick. This is Roll Coverage. I'm going to keep putting out videos. Weekends are a little tough for me. Again, I'm an MBA student, so it's taken me a little bit of time to get these going. But I'm very happy to be involved in the Panthers fan base and everything like that. Again, I've said that if we trade Brian Burns, that my Panthers fandom is suspended for a full season, meaning that I would be done with the Panthers this season as well as all of next season to make a return of the 2026 season. But right now, I'm just giving them the chance. I'm giving them the chance to fire Fitterer. I gave him the chance to give up play calling, which he did, which, again, I said was going to happen. It was a part of my plan. Again, quick recap. Have him give up play calling, fire Fitterer, get into the offseason. I would honestly not franchise tag Brian Burns. I would get a deal done at like 27, 28 million a year, just under. Get him a longer deal, 6, 7, 8 years, whatever. Make sure he's a Panther for life, and then move from there. If you're going to make an in-season move, again, I would make it for Pat Surtain from the Broncos. I don't think that there's a wide receiver one out there that's worth trading for. I would love Devontae Adams, but there's no point in bringing a 30-plus-year-old, essentially another Adam Thielen to the team where we would have to give up a lot. If we're going to trade Brian Burns, which, again, I will suspend my fandom if we do, I think that the only thing I would trade Brian Burns for is either our pick back or the Bears pick, because that's going to be either 1, 2, 3, something right in there, and which means we could snag Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. So I think you give that to Bryce Young, and we're off and running. But again, we're going to get out of here. This is Nick with Roll Coverage. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day. And yeah, if you guys got any thoughts or anything like that, drop them down in the comments. We'll see you guys soon.